Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Hoosier Energy, providing electricity to southern and central Indiana electric cooperatives and their member customers. Information at hepn.com. And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Right now on Indiana Newsdesk, the online healthcare marketplace is working, but a lot of the state's poorest residents are in a tough spot as the deadline to get insurance or face fines nears.
You pray a lot, you cuss a lot, and you cry sometimes.
A cultural tradition or an illegal drug similar to cocaine. One of the first Khat trafficking cases recently played out in Indiana.
It was something that was normal to them in their own society and the culture they grew up with. They did not know that they were doing something illegal.
Ahead on Indiana Newsdesk, a debate about the dangers of Khat and why some say cracking down on its use has a devastating impact among Indiana's refugee communities. Plus, the state superintendent is accusing the governor of trying to oust her from her position. Those stories and a look at this week's headlines right now on Indiana Newsdesk. Hello, I'm Joe Wren and welcome to Indiana Newsdesk. Now that the Affordable Care Act website is working, thousands of Hoosiers who are logging on are finding out they aren't eligible for any subsidy. In some cases, they're too poor to qualify. WTIU Sarah Whitmire has the story.
Ava Lara Quinte says she used to absolutely love her job.
I was a teacher. At one time, I taught elementary school.
She did it for more than a decade, but in 1999, she finally had to step away from the career she loved because she had so many health problems, among them bone degeneration and PTSD.
I couldn't move or having trouble getting up and down. Once I get straight up, I can move for a while, but with the bones and the knee and the whatever that needs attention.
Lara Quinte's at the Social Security office because her health has gone downhill since she quit her job because she can't afford the medications and treatment she needs. When she quit her job, she also lost her insurance. She tried to apply for health care through the state's Medicaid program but was denied. And now Lara Quinte can't get coverage through the Affordable Care Act either.
The irony of, if you make above the 100% of federal poverty, then you can buy insurance on the exchanges and get a subsidy to help pay for your premiums. But if you fall below 100% of poverty, then you're too poor and you don't get any help at all.
As many as 400,000 Hoosiers are in the same boat as Lara Quinte. More than 100 of them rallied last month at the State House for better health coverage. The Affordable Care Act allowed states to expand Medicaid to 138% of the poverty level. But Indiana Governor Mike Pence said no, and he wanted to expand the system using the Healthy Indiana Plan model. In September, he announced the state had gotten a waiver from the U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary to continue the program through 2014.
I believe that securing the waiver to continue the Healthy Indiana Plan is a victory for Hoosiers enrolled in this innovative program.
But after 2014, it's up in the air. The program, which has been in effect since 2008, requires Hoosiers to, as Pence likes to say, have skin in the game. People have to help pay for their first $1,100 of care, and the number of people who can enroll in it is capped.
We've made a decision in the state to pretty much cover females with dependents, right? That's really what the HIP plan is. So if you were an adult who was poor with no children, male or female, didn't matter. There was pretty much no room for you at the end.
But even a family of four in Indiana right now has a hard time getting on the Healthy Indiana Plan because they keep capping the enrollment. And for traditional Medicaid, a family of four can only make, 32% of federal poverty. It works out to $11.39 a day. If a family of four makes $11.40 a day, they make too much money for Medicaid.
About 38,000 people are currently enrolled in the state's Healthy Indiana plan. Another 52,000 Hoosiers are on the waiting list. But those numbers could change because the Healthy Indiana plan eligibility requirements are changing at the end of the year. Here's how it breaks down. Medicaid eligibility extends to people who make up to 24% of the poverty level in Indiana. The Healthy Indiana plan covers Hoosiers up to 200% of the poverty level until the end of the year, when that's reduced to 100% of the poverty level. People who make between 100 and 400% of the poverty level will be eligible for subsidies under the health exchange. A spokesperson for the FSSA wouldn't agree to an on-camera interview, but in an email said by reducing the income standard for the Healthy Indiana plan, it allows more people to be covered and eliminates the potential for duplication of coverage.
The penalty that the Indiana had to pay in order to get the waiver extended was to actually throw people out of the plan, and that was unfortunate. Now, that doesn't mean that people going out of the plan didn't create capacity, so perhaps some poorer people who had been in line for this many months might not be able to get in and take that plan. But that's just moving cups and balls, right? You're not changing fundamentally the nature of the uninsured.
In this past legislative session, lawmakers set aside $250 million for potential costs associated with the Affordable Care Act. Stone says he'd like to ask Governor Pence why he says there's no money to expand Medicaid when that money is just sitting. Through 2016, the federal government has agreed to pay 100% of the cost to expand Medicaid. It would go down incrementally after that to 90% in 2020. Stone says Indiana has the money to pay its share of the cost.
There are estimates of what it would cost to expand Medicaid through the Affordable Care Act, and they range between a low of $50 million a year and a high of $150 million a year.
I think we spend plenty of money on a lot of other things that could wait. Let's make our people healthy.
With few exceptions, everyone is required to have health insurance in a year or face tax penalties.
Some people aren't going to be able to pay for it at all. And then they were saying, I know what I've heard among the extremely poor, those of us who've been at the very bottom and even below, it's like, we have a deadline date. Okay, or you're going to jail. That's the rumor. And it's like, well, I guess they're going to have to build some more jails,
We should mention it seems unlikely we'll actually see a lot of people going to jail if they fail to sign up for insurance. The penalty in 2014 for not having coverage is either 1% of a person's income or $95, whichever is greater. Of course, those fees do increase every year. The IRS says if you can't afford to pay the fine with the tax return, they'll take it out of any refund that you might have due. Law does prohibit the IRS from seizing your property as a penalty for failing to have health coverage. And now for a look at headlines, we go over to Alex Dierkman, who has this week's top stories.
Thank you, Joe. Notre Dame University refiled a lawsuit this week against the Obama administration for a portion of the Affordable Care Act that requires businesses to provide insurance that includes free contraceptives to their employees. A federal judge dismissed the university's first lawsuit in January, saying it was premature. The Obama administration has since made accommodations for religiously affiliated institutions. They do not have to provide contraceptive coverage directly, but must use a third party to do so.
If you read the complaint, in essence, Notre Dame is saying you don't understand Catholic theology. That from the standpoint of Catholic theology, we have a doctrine of religious scandal, which basically means that we cannot be complicit, we cannot be endorsing, we cannot be perceived to be endorsing conduct that is contrary to our Catholic principles.
The Supreme Court announced last month it would hear a similar but separate case that questions whether the government can require for-profit companies to mandate contraceptive coverage. School corporations in Indiana are using money from a lawsuit settlement to pay for employees' health care costs. Josh and Lynn has more.
The settlement stems from a suit that alleges the Indiana State Teachers Association improperly used money from health care plans to make risky investments and pay off long-term disability claims. The Secretary of State this week announced how much money the 27 schools involved in the lawsuit would receive. The Southwest School Corporation in Sullivan is set to receive nearly $1.3 million by the end of the month, but that's only half of what the district lost.
So when you go from thinking you're not going to get any money at all, getting half, I think they're pretty satisfied, I guess, from that aspect.
The superintendent says the district's first order of business is to use the money to help pay for teachers' health care plans. He says if the district wanted to use the money for anything else, the school board would have to approve the move first.
A dozen Indiana mayors across Indiana are joining to voice their opposition to a proposed constitutional amendment that would ban gay marriage. Mayors that spoke out against the measure include Bloomington Mayor Mark Cruzan, Kokomo Mayor Greg Goodnight, Carmel Mayor Jim Brainerd, and Indianapolis Mayor Greg Ballard. They say the change would hurt the state's efforts to attract jobs and talent to work and live in their cities. Others call the change unnecessary and harmful to the state's economic development and competitiveness. Indiana is creating a comprehensive energy plan. The current plan dates back to 2006, and since then, the state's electricity costs have dropped from 5th lowest in the nation to 27th. Governor Mike Pence says he wants the new plan to provide more options for customers and explore ways to commercialize new energy technology. The Office of Energy Development will submit the plan and its recommendations to the governor in June. The first TSA Precheck Enrollment Center opened at the Indianapolis International Airport this week. It allows travelers to bypass some of the hassles involved with airport security, including removing their shoes, jackets, and belts, and liquids from their luggage. Those who pay to opt into the Precheck program must undergo a background check. A judge has thrown out a suit against one of the men who was with Lauren Spear the night she disappeared in 2011. The suit Spear's parents filed in May alleged Corey Rossman, Jason Rosenbaum, and Michael Beth were negligent because they didn't care for their daughter even though she was extremely intoxicated. Citing previous cases, the judge ruled this week that Michael Beth had no duty to care for Spear.
And as the judge said on public policy, that it will dissuade anybody from rendering assistance to somebody that's obviously sick on the side of the road, that's lost in the street. You dissuade folks from being involved at all by punishing them if somebody decides later on they didn't do enough.
The judge says she'll rule on the cases against the other two men by the end of the year. The Spears and their attorney would not comment on the ruling. And Indiana's congressional delegation is backing Governor Mike Pence's request for federal assistance to help Howard County residents affected by the recent tornadoes. In a letter to President Barack Obama, the members wrote, "It is clear the recovery is beyond the capabilities and resources of the state of Indiana." The governor requested the aid this week. If it is approved, Howard County residents would be eligible for grants they can use to pay for temporary housing and home repairs. Disaster relief organizations estimate at least $2.8 million will be needed for Howard County. And Joe, as we remember from last week, Daviess County was hit very hard. Governor Pence says if the Howard County request is approved, he would consider asking for help for the other areas too.
All right, thank you, Alex. Coming up next on Indiana Newsdesk. Is Khat a cultural tradition or an illegal drug similar to cocaine? More on one of the first Khat trafficking cases in Indiana. And it has some of the state's worst test scores, but should state officials take over a troubled school in Evansville? In our state impact report, hear why leaders of the local district say they don't need more outside help. Those stories right here on Indiana Newsdesk.
PBS kicks off the weekends with Charlie Rose and America's top newsmakers on his new series, Charlie Rose, The Week.
Some people say, well, Obama was this raving liberal before, now he's Dick Cheney.
Recap the week's biggest stories and Charlie's best interviews.
You feel there's this incredible synergy between the audience and the performer, and time slows down.
And get a look at the week ahead. Charlie Rose, The Week. Check local listings.
It makes me angry and it makes me want to voice it. Frontline provides me with information that makes me think. We have to be informed. I'm going to see truth from a lot of different sides. I trust Frontline. Once I have the truth, I want to communicate that truth. That's where change begins. It's a current that comes through my mind and says, there's a new direction here and we have to move in it.
Frontline.
We can make a difference.
Welcome back to Indiana Newsdesk. I'm Joe Wren. Khat is a leaf chewed culturally throughout East Africa and the Arabian Peninsula as a stimulant. As immigrants come to the U.S., Khat is one of the traditions they bring with them. But a change in law 20 years ago made Khat illegal, and the penalties for possessing it are equal to other drugs such as cocaine. One of the first Khat trafficking cases in the country recently played out in Indianapolis. And as Simon Thompson reports, it sent a sobering message through the area's Somali community who say Khat is part of their culture.
Khat is a lot like chewing tobacco. You chew up a handful of Khat leaves and pack it into the inside of your cheek for a mild buzz. It can also be brewed into a tea and has been a tradition for centuries in East Africa, where Islamic law forbids drinking alcohol. Indiana University professor of African folklore John Johnson spent 8 years in East Africa. He was brought into the Indianapolis case to talk about how Khat is used to interact socially. He compares Somalis chewing the leaf to Americans drinking coffee.
They have little bowls of sugar around because Khat is putrid bitter. And they chew Khat and they talk about politics. And they talk about other issues of social interest. And they just generally socialize and enjoy themselves together.
But in the United States, Khat is a controlled substance, and where Johnson compares it to coffee, the DEA would be more likely to compare Khat to cocaine.
Khat, being a stimulant, can also lead to violence, delusional thinking, and paranoia, and that's one of the reasons DEA scheduled it back in 1993.
The case in Indianapolis was one of the first successful Khat trafficking prosecutions in the country. The FBI seized more than 400 kilograms of Khat with a street value of $400,000, and they arrested 11 Somali men who were moving it between Indianapolis and Columbus, Ohio. Most of them were taxi drivers. Jamal Ali has been driving a cab in Indianapolis for 15 years. He knows a number of the men who were arrested and says they were chewing Khat to get through long shifts and blow off steam after work.
It was something that was normal to them in their own society and the culture they grew up with. But it was a matter of awareness. They did not know that they were doing something illegal.
Attorney Howard Bernstein represented one of the Somali men indicted in the Indianapolis trafficking case. He says conflicting government statutes on the leaf's level of danger make pursuing Khat prosecutions problematic.
The equivalency in the sentencing tables that the government's been using since 1987 to sentence people in the federal criminal system give an equivalency of 1/100th of potency of Khat to marijuana.
Khat and amphetamines do have similar chemical structures, but Khat's effects are far milder. You would have to pack more than 4 pounds of the leaf into your mouth to chew out a dose equivalent to a single line of cocaine.
I forget how many officers, FBI officers, testified. They came from various places around the Midwest working on this case. Local police. I mean, I don't know what the government spent on the case, but my guess is that the figure is into 7 figures. And it probably isn't worth that kind of prosecution, and for that kind of resource, the resources are better spent elsewhere.
Bernstein worries that a cultural tradition has been criminalised. Somalis have been afraid to come back to this Indianapolis coffee shop since the case revealed the FBI was surveilling the area and tapping customers' phones. The case in Indianapolis didn't show the men were involved in any other criminal activities. But that hasn't been the case in cities with larger Somali communities.
Trying to make it look like it's a big drug, and that was not the case at all.
Because Khat has been pushed onto the black market, the FBI says it's often linked to money laundering and violence. Most of the men convicted in the Indianapolis case were sentenced to about a year in jail plus probation. But the effects have been far further reaching.
I know this latest arrest of some of our community members had very devastating effect for some families.
The majority of the convicted men aren't American citizens, and with a felony drug conviction, they and their families are on the register to be deported.
You can imagine how the clans would treat these folks coming from the United States back to Somalia. They'd probably kill all these people thinking that they're some kind of spy or, cooperator with our government or who knows what.
And reporter Simon Thompson joins me now for more. Simon, in Indianapolis, the Somali community is largely made up of refugees that fled the Civil War. But now there's some question on whether or not those members of the community and family members will actually be deported back to Somalia.
Yes, so immigration can't deport people back to countries that don't have established governments. So Somalia has seen famine, civil war, drought. There was a car bombing yesterday that killed 7 people associated with Islamic militants. This is an unstable country, and until things kind of stabilize or they can find a third country to send these people back to, they're going to remain in the US with their families until the near future, further notice. Yeah.
Now in the US, Khat is treated a lot like cocaine. How about internationally?
It's really only legal in a handful of countries, mainly the countries that it's used culturally, Kenya, Yemen, Ethiopia, obviously Somalia. But Canada, it's illegal. Most of Europe. 2 countries have been on the tail end of that trend in Europe, the United Kingdom and the Netherlands. These are countries where cod has been often pushed through on its way to America. Most of the cod that comes into America goes through one of these 2 countries. So with the United Kingdom having their ban early next year and the Netherlands ban earlier this year, the DEA is expecting to see a lot less cod in the United States.
Well, now, how about medically?
On a medical level, this is kind of the problem with these kind of cases. Science isn't really that clear on exactly how cod is, what the problems with it is. On some levels it's associated with violence, but other studies have put its psychological dependency and physical dependency not only lower than heroin or cocaine, but lower than common legal substances like tobacco and alcohol.
Thank you, Simon, for your report today. State education officials have a decision to make about a school with some of Indiana's worst test scores. We're talking about Glenwood Leadership Academy in Evansville. State Impact Education reporter Kyle Stokes is here to tell us more about that school. Kyle, nearly 3/4 of the school's students did not pass state tests this year.
Yeah, Joe, and if you can believe it, that number is actually worse than it was a year ago. And scores like that have all but guaranteed Glenwood an F for the 6th straight year, a streak that would normally trigger some kind of intervention, the state hiring an outside company to improve the school or to take it over altogether. But Evansville school district leaders say none of that is necessary because they already have a plan to turn the school around. Faced with a school-wide discipline problem and widespread staff burnout, the Evansville school district last school year gave all staff members at Glenwood a chance to either stay at the school or to transfer to another post in the district. Right away, 1/3 of the teaching force left. Those who stayed got intensive training, and that's continued this year. It's part of Evansville's turnaround plan for Glenwood and for 4 other F schools in the district. And at its center is a $600,000 contract with a Boston-based school turnaround group and a newly formed turnaround team in the district office. The leader of that team's performance evaluation is based in part on the test scores at Glenwood and those 4 other schools. The district still has to convince the state board their plan will work at a public meeting in Evansville next week. The state's top Republicans now all appear to be behind a push of some kind to pass pre-K legislation this session. Governor Mike Pence announced he'd ask lawmakers to pass a plan to create vouchers for preschool. He didn't outline a plan to pay for it, though, and that has been a hang-up for Indiana lawmakers in the past. Pence also says he wants to phase out a tax on business equipment that critics say could take $1 billion away from local governments and schools without any way to replace the funding. Now, we all remember 3 weeks ago when the State Board of Education tried to pass a motion over the objections of State Superintendent Glenda Ritz, and this, of course, is what happened.
This meeting is adjourned.
You can adjourn a meeting with that.
Ritz walked out to block the motion because she says it was illegal. The motion would have authorized state board staff to help board members review the Common Core academic standards. Ritz says the law gives that task to the Department of Education. But the Attorney General didn't agree. He issued an opinion yesterday saying the law also gives the state board one-time authority to review the Common Core ahead of a deadline for approving a set of academic standards in July. Ritz says she feels that's a realistic deadline, but board members aren't so sure. That's why they brought the motion in the first place. It seems Indiana's top education officials agree on precious little these days. 2 meetings of Ritz and the state board designed to heal rifts between the 2 camps this week didn't go so so well. On Wednesday, Ritz accused Governor Mike Pence's newly created education agency of a power grab and released an email she says proves it. The document does show Pence administration staff of floating the possibility of changing state law to have Ritz removed as chair. But the same document also warns such a move could have substantial political fallout. And Joe, of course, you might remember that there was a lawsuit that Ritz had filed over an open door complaint. Well, a new lawsuit has been filed on the exact same grounds. Never a dull moment here at State Impact Indiana. You'll want to check out that story.
Okay, thank you very much, Kyle. Well, many enjoyed the first snow day of the season as it predicted 5 to 8 inches of snow closed schools and some businesses. More than 600 Indiana Department of Transportation salt trucks were out treating the roadways overnight, and today more than 5 inches of snow has already fallen across southern Indiana, with more on the way. Now, that winter storm warning we talked about will expire at midnight Friday, but keep an eye to the forecast on Sunday. Sleet, freezing rain, and drizzle are predicted. We'll also have any delays and closings reported to us at WTIUnews.org. And Alex, I was just seeing that the Indiana State Department of Police, the Bloomington District, does report about 13 property damage crashes, about 20 slide-offs today, so quite a day.
It's pretty dangerous.
Stay safe, everybody.
Yes.
Exactly. That's the end of this program, but our work continues online as we cover the news in southern Indiana throughout the week at WTIUnews.org. Have a great weekend.
Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Hoosier Energy, providing electricity to southern and central Indiana electric cooperatives and their member customers. Information at hepn.com. And by WTIU members. Thank you.